Let us pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, as we come before you at this time, Lord, I ask for help on my part to be able to explain what it is you're saying here, Lord. I ask for effort on the part of those that are here. Lord, this is not something you just pick up and you get it if you don't put forth effort. This is going to tell, do we truly consider your word our authority? Is it truly worth trying on our part to dig deeper? Lord, I just ask for the capability of the Holy Spirit, both on my teaching ability and those that are here to be illuminated in their learning ability. Through you, Lord, we have the ability to understand. Let us do this now. For your name we pray, Master. Amen.
Amen.
We are going back over Daniel 10 again. I taught it Wednesday night. Because there are sometimes I teach stuff and I understand it's hard, but there are other times I teach stuff and I go, what do you mean this is hard? And that's kind of how it was Wednesday nights. And I felt like there was really only a couple people putting forth effort, and when I had people tell me then, well, that went over my head. My response really was, it's because you're not trying. So we're going to go back over it this time, and I'm saying that in all love, but if you don't want to learn this, you will not learn this. If you do want to learn this, this will be the most detailed, most researched presentation in the most broken down form of Daniel 10 you've ever gotten in your life. I went back over it today, and I took out everything that even remotely wasn't needed to get to the core basics. All right? In the midst of that, I was going over everything I taught. And it is beyond me that I still have people tell me that went right over my head. It's because you weren't trying. You've got to try on this. It is easy. And let me give you a breakdown of what's happening here. We're at the very end of Daniel. Okay? At the very end of Daniel, we've got this great spiritual situation set itself up for the last final vision of Daniel 11 going into Daniel 12. Okay? Daniel 11 is going to start the vision. Daniel 11 will begin repeating things you've already seen very quickly. Okay? Then it's going to go into detail about the Greek Empire under the rule of the 4 generals of Alexander. In particular, it's going to break down the north and the south. Remember what we said to do. With north and south, we're just going to plug in the Egyptian and the Syrian, or the Ptolemaic and the Seleucid. We are working our way up to a figure named Antiochus IV. He is the ancient intertestamental period Hitler. That's all you need to know. Okay? Hitler persecuted the Jews, genocide, all this. This was Antiochus IV. We are working towards him. In the midst of Daniel 11, in the prophecy about him, somewhere about 35, 36 range, probably maybe 39, it's going to break off all of a sudden and cut into a prophecy about the Antichrist. Why and how can we be talking about Antiochus, who between 167 and 164 BC, and all of a sudden jump to the Antichrist in one sentence? How is that possible? Because Antiochus is a typological foreshadow of what the Antichrist will be like. So what we're going to see is we're going to watch Antiochus persecute God's people between the Old and New Testament, and then we're going to see what the Antichrist will do to God's people in the final tribulation. Okay? All of that is coming in Daniel 11. That's the hard part. That's the part where even Dennis, one of my best students, was falling asleep. And I go, Dennis, wake up. But that was the part some of you came to me and said, I'll never forget. All I got to do is go King of the North, King of the South. I can plug it in, and it makes sense now. Yes. And so we're going to go over that. That'll be the 6 Syrian wars that is between the Old and New Testament and the intertestamental period time. And unless you want to learn it, you won't. Okay? This is not one of those I can daydream and think somewhere else and get it. You won't if you don't try. But that's coming up. The easy part is Daniel 10. I don't understand what was hard about it, because all we've got in this part is Daniel's mourning and fasting and prayer. And then all of a sudden Daniel is met by a heavenly being. And then all of a sudden we're introduced to an evil demonic prince known as the Prince of Persia. And then we've got to see where the Old Testament talks about these types of spiritual princes. These are going to be evil angelic beings put over the nations, is what they are. We see this in Psalms 82, Isaiah 24, Deuteronomy 32. It's all throughout the Old Testament, okay? Admittedly, in Deuteronomy 32, we once again have to deal with a textual variant in verse 8. It is not that hard if you pay attention, okay? In the Old Testament, matter of fact, never take sides in a textual variant debate. The only time I take sides is when I'm 100% certain. There's only one textual variant in the Old Testament I'm 100% certain about. It is Deuteronomy 32, verse 8 through 9. Okay? 100% certain. We will see why once we get there again. Now these are really pretty straightforward, so I don't understand what was hard about it. But we're going to try this again, okay? And it's going to be up to you. Do you want to learn this or not? And we'll go from there. All right, so let's start here. Daniel 10, verse 1. Daniel 10, verse 1. All right, Jacynda, read that.
In the 3rd year of Cyrus king of Persia, a word was revealed to Daniel, whose name is Belshazzar. And the word was true, and it was a great conflict. And he understood the word and had understanding of the vision.
Very straightforward. We are in the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia. 3rd year of what? 3rd year after he conquered Babylon. Okay? What year did Cyrus conquer Babylon? What year did the Persians conquer Babylon and inevitably send the Israelites out of exile again? What year? We've said it 1,000 times. 539 BC. So remember, BC counts backwards, counting down like a spaceship launch. Okay? 3 years from 539 BC would put us in what roughly year?
536.
Very good. 536, 535 BC range. Okay? How did we get that? Because this is the 3rd year of Cyrus. That means the 3rd year from 539. That's how we know that. This is going to be 2 years after Daniel 9. And this is going to be around the time of the lion's den. Okay? It's either roughly before or after, but around that time. Daniel, whose name is Belshazzar, that's his Babylonian slave name, or his exile name. Why would he give that here? Because he wants you to know he has been in exile pretty much his whole life. He has been under foreign oppression since a very young age. He is roughly in his mid to early 80s to early 90s, and he's been in exile for over 66 to 70 years now. Okay? That is a long time to be under a foreign power. Okay? In the midst of this, he receives this vision here, and it's about the great conflict, which is going to be the great war that is going to take place between Daniel 10, 11, and 12. This war will involve spiritual warfare and earthly warfare, which means everything in history has a spiritual side and an earthly side. There's a very real war going on. This isn't about chasing demons. It's about spiritual power shaping world history. Behind every earthly action is a spiritual puppet master pulling the strings. Behind this is the warfare that's going on. Okay? There's more than just Satan out there. Everybody wants to jump and go, oh, it's a high-ranking demon, must be Satan. No, it's not always about Satan. Can Satan be everywhere at once? No, he cannot. Okay? He's much more equivalent to Michael. He's nowhere near God, and he can't be everywhere at once. This is a hierarchical structure. But even below this structure, who is it that has to allow anything to happen? God. Okay? He is the one that set up this structure itself. We'll get to that in a minute. In the meantime, Daniel has this vision about the great war. This is the spiritual and earthly wars of Daniel 10, 11, and 12. I'll read verse 2 through 3.
In those days, Daniel was mourning for 3 weeks. I ate no delicacies, no meat or wine entered my mouth, nor did I anoint myself at all for the full 3 weeks.
Okay. He's been mourning for how long? 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Okay. In the midst of this, if you combine this with verse 12, we know he's praying as well. He's in the Hebrews in a state of continual mourning. He is praying probably about the opposition to the rebuilding of Jerusalem that's going on. And he's doing what's called a semi-fast. Semi-fast. Okay? Not a total fast, but a semi-fast where he's putting away choice foods and lotions and oils. Choice foods he's not eating are meat and wine. He's only eating bread and water. What does that let us know about his early boycott of food when he became a vegetarian in Daniel 1? What do we know about that? He learned, and it wasn't a lifelong thing. So those books that talk about the Daniel diet don't understand what's really going on with that. Okay? This was a temporary situation in Daniel 1. He, for the rest of his life, he would eat these kind of foods, but now he's putting them away. He also will not anoint with oils or lotions. He won't wear ancient Near Eastern deodorant or skin coolant where it's hot. So he's a hungry, stinky old man. Okay? It's been 3 weeks. He is hungry and he's stinky and he's old, and it's just a crazy time for him. He's in a state of prayerful turmoil. And then in verse 4.
On the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was standing on the bank of the great river, that is the Tigris.
Now the first month on the Jewish calendar would be our March or April. The 24th day would mean that a certain Jewish holiday happened near this time as well. Passover. Very good. So during this time period, during this 3-week time period, it is near Passover, which happens between the 14th and 21st day. He is near the Tigris, which the Euphrates is near the actual city, which means he's outside the city, somewhere between 20 and hundreds of miles away. He is out there in this state of spiritual turmoil. he's got a couple companions with him, but they're not going to be too brave once all these spiritual activity starts, as we will see. They will leave this poor old man by himself. All right. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Verses 5 through 6. We get a glimpse into the spiritual world. We get a glimpse at what spiritual beings look like. Okay? Now, there's a debate about the exact identity of this being. Is this an angelic being of the pre-incarnate Christ? All right? Either's possible. I think it's just straight up Gabriel. But there's a debate. We will deal with that. In the meantime, this is a spiritual being, and here's how they're described. What you need to understand is it's going to be fiery, glowing light. Fiery light. Team heavenly being always looks like fiery light. What do we say Wednesday night? The same way that Alabama is what? Crimson and white? Is that right? Crimson and white, and Auburn is orange and blue. Team heavenly being is always fiery light. Okay, so everything you're going to see here is going to depict some kind of fiery light one way or another. He's going to start by saying, I lifted up my eyes, which means this being is probably floating in the air. Okay? Now read this for us, Jacynda.
I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a man clothed in linen, with a belt of fine gold from Uphaz around his waist. His body was like beryl, his face like the appearance of lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and the sound of his words like the sound of a multitude.
So what does it say here? Why does it call him a man? Because his initial silhouette appearance is human form. Okay? You start with that. Human form type body. He is dressed in linen. It's a bright white. Okay? In the Old Testament and the New, linen is associated with two classes. The priest and angelic beings. Therefore, this is going to be an individual concerned with the spiritual. Okay? So we've got a human form who's concerned with the spiritual. We know that. His waist is in pure gold, probably a chain or embroidered belt, which means he has authority. Okay? His body is like golden topaz. This is a golden precious gemstone that is transparent where light passes through. That means his body has a glow to it. That's the point of this. Glow. Have you ever seen light pass through a gemstone? You see it radiates. That's what his body's doing here. His face has this lightning flare to it. Okay? His eyes are flaming torches. Now this, for one, is what every divine being looked like. But two, in ancient Near Eastern thought, this is what someone who had extraordinary knowledge would have, are these bright, penetrating eyes, which means he can look into and read your mind, look at your heart and tell if it's pure or not. You can't get nothing past him. That's the point of this. These bright torch eyes, okay? His arms and feet, gleaming polished bronze. This means he has the fiery appearance like burning metal. Have you ever seen metal in its fiery state, okay? Light, fire, glow. All this is this molten state going on right here. And finally, last but not least, his words were what? An extremely powerful booming voice like a multitude of people. Overall, he's a dazzling brightness and awesome splendor. Do you remember on Wednesday night in Jewish literature, there was one particular book that every angelic being had in Jewish literature. One thing was always common about them. They had the appearance of fire. Okay? This right here matches the appearance of fire. Light, brightness, glowing. Okay? Team heavenly being. Alright? Keep that in mind. That's important. Alright? Who is this being? Well, that's going to depend on verse 9 and 10 if there's a break or not. Possible theories are this. This is either Gabriel, who we know from verse 10 forward is Gabriel. Okay? This is possibly Michael, who's in the context of Daniel 10. This is possibly one of the other two beings from 12:5. Or this is the pre-incarnate Christ, based on Ezekiel 1 and Revelation 1:13 through 16. I don't think it's the pre-incarnate Christ, but I'm not opposed to that idea. And here's why. Read for us Revelation 1:13 through 16, and pay attention to how these verses match these verses in Daniel we just read. Read Revelation 1:13 through 16.
And in the midst of the lampstands, one like a son of man, clothed with a long robe and with a golden sash around his chest. The hairs of his head were white, like white wool, like snow. His eyes were like a flame of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze, refined in a furnace, and his voice was like the roar of many waters. In his right hand he held 7 stars. From his mouth came a sharp two-edged sword, and his face was like the sun, shining in full strength. Oh, that is Jesus Christ, by the way. Son of Man, we know for a fact later in the chapter. By the way, lampstands, those are menorahs. Why would Jesus Christ be going through menorahs? He's Jewish, but he's the true Israel, which makes us the true Israel. Okay? This is one of these huge, very good, by the way. Very, very good. That's right. That's huge right there. Yes, this is Jesus,
So I don't mind people who say this is a pre-incarnate Christ. However, there's also very well could be an angelic being, because all this is team heavenly being descriptions, okay? All this means is you're on the good guy side. That's all it means, all right? That's all it has to mean, one or the other. We'll see more about this in a second, all right? Verse 7 through 8.
And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men who were with me did not see the vision. But a great trembling fell upon them, and they fled to hide themselves. So I was left alone and saw this great vision, and no strength was left in me. My radiant appearance was fearfully changed, and I retained no strength. Okay, two things you got to know from this. Who is the only one who saw this going on? Daniel. What is that similar to? Someone else had an experience like... Very good, Acts 9. Very good. You guys I'm impressed that you could pull it out so fast. Brother Arnold did that as well, so I was really impressed. That's good. Very, very good. Similar to Paul, the others with him, they didn't see anything, but they felt the spiritual activity around them. That's what happens when you encounter angels and demons. You roughly feel it, and they felt it. And in this case, it was utter fear. And when they felt this utter fear, what did they do to their old man buddy Daniel? They left him standing there. The poor old stinky man is by himself now. I just feel sorry for this guy at this point, okay? So he's by himself, all right? And then what does poor old stinky Daniel do? Falls on his face and goes unconscious, okay? We're going to see Daniel in this state of emotional turmoil throughout this whole thing. It's very complicated why he keeps doing this, but that's a whole other story. All right, now let's read verses 9 through 11. Then I heard the sound of his words, and as I heard the sound of his words, I fell on my face in deep sleep, with my face to the ground. Stop there.
The question is there a break in speakers between verse 9 and verse 10? Okay? Is this the same individual in 9 and 10, or is it two different individuals? This is where the theories themselves come in. You know, the big question is, we know verse 9 is the guy described in verse 5, that the heavenly being. We know verse 10 starts Gabriel, okay? The big question is right here. You know, if this is Gabriel, why does Daniel keep going into panic attacks? He's already encountered Gabriel and never has panic attacks then. Why not? Okay, admittedly, that's true. We see Daniel 9, Daniel 8. He doesn't. However, there's absolutely nothing in the literary context itself that depicts a break. It flows right together. So there's nothing that depicts a break itself. But if you ever read commentaries on Daniel or hear a preacher talk, and they go, there's two beings here, or they go, there's only one being here, we're not sure, they're talking about the possible break between 9 and 10. Does this make sense to you? Is anybody confused right now? What we know for a fact is, verse 9 is describing the fiery torch guy we just saw. Verse 10 we know is describing Gabriel. Is this describing the same person? I believe so. Others do not. And it's okay if you don't either. Okay, this is one of these things I'm okay about if you go another direction. The big question here is, was the person he just saw the pre-incarnate Christ or not? Okay? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I'm not 100% sold on it, but based on Revelation 1, there are some similarities there, correct? I admit that. But at the same time, it's just not enough evidence for me to go, certainly this is who it is. So I hold back. You might hear some other guys say, yes, it is, and I'm fine if they do. I don't even disagree with them, maybe. I just don't think there's enough evidence there to say one way or another, okay? Are you following me here? Are we getting that, okay? I'm just taking a very hard concept and made it sound easy. It's really not that easy, but are you getting it, okay? Okay, good, we can move along here. So, we know for a fact, starting in verse 10, we're talking about Gabriel. Keep that in mind. Regardless of who that was back then, although I think it's Gabriel, we know from verse 10 forward, it's all Gabriel, okay? Keep that in mind. Go to verse 10 forward.
And behold, a hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. And he said to me, O Daniel, man greatly loved, understand the words that I speak to you, and stand upright, for now I have been sent to you. And when he had spoken this word to me, I stood up trembling. Okay. Oh man, what he's talking about here, he keeps reassuring him, and he did this last time too, though. I mean, that's Gabriel for you. He said, God greatly covets you. The same way human beings covet gold, silver, and precious garments is how God feels about Daniel. It's a very special relationship. Yes, God loves all his children, but there are special relationships. This is one of these special relationships, okay? So that's what you let him know. But he's still emotionally distraught. I think a lot of this emotional distraught comes from the fact he's in his mid-80s to early 90s. He hasn't eaten really much for 3 weeks, and he hasn't bathed, and he's all alone. I think he's just distraught at this point. Yes?
I have a question.
Sure.
To me, it sounds like there could have been two.
Yes.
He's got scared and fell on his face and went out, and then someone he touches him and says, "I've been sent to you."
Yes, that is one of the theories. Now, literary break's not there. However, that is one of the theories, that someone else touches him. The question is it the same person that's described in verse 5 or a different person? I'm fine with either theory. And so that is what you just said is one of the theories. That they think it's a different person that once spoke to him, which made him fall out, and then Gabriel, who he knows, comes in and kind of performs divine first aid and says, I'm here, don't worry, you know me. Okay? That is one of the theories. And I'm perfectly fine with that theory. I don't push it either way, and the reason why is there's, to me, just not enough evidence to be certain on, but I'm okay with every direction you go. So if you want to go that way, I'm cool with that. That is not one of those things I'm against. I'm really cool with that. Very, very good paying attention right there. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so that leads us down to verse 12, more comforting to Daniel, who was just emotionally distraught. This poor guy. I feel sorry. Everyone talks about, I had this heavenly vision and it was great. No, we look at poor Daniel right here. This poor guy is going to need to be institutionalized when this is said and done. Somebody give him some food and give him a bath, or he's going to go crazy. All right, go ahead, verse 12.
Then he said to me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and humble yourself before your God, your words have been heard, and I have come because of your words.
Okay, this lets you know, when did God hear his prayer? From the start. From the very, very beginning. It wasn't delayed. When you started, Daniel, God heard you. However, we're going to see in verse 13, the reason why you have not got an answer was there was a great spiritual obstacle in my way to come relay this message. What in the world can stop an angel from carrying out God's will or God's plan right here? What can get in his way? What can thwart or be an obstacle that delays? It doesn't hinder all the way, but it does delay it time-wise. What in the world can do that? An enemy, a demonic being. Okay, keep that in mind. This is going to be huge. Read verse 13.
The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, but Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I was left there with the kings of Persia.
Now, I won't even get into that phrase, was left there with the kings of Persia. That's either geographical region with like Cyrus or Cambyses, or it's other demons. I'm not worried about that. I want to look at two things here. I want to look at the identity of somebody you should know, Michael, and somebody who you might not know. I kind of wish you did, but you might not, so I'll introduce him to you, the Prince of Persia. Okay? We got two beings here who in the context are put in the same category. Is Michael a human or an angel? So therefore, the Prince of Persia is what? An angelic spiritual being. We know that, okay? This cannot be, as Calvin and others who wrongly say, Cambyses, Cyrus Jacynda, cannot be. The terminology will not allow you. The actions will not allow you. We'll get all that in a minute. Let's look at who we know first here, okay? Michael. His name means who is like God. We see him throughout Scripture. Daniel 10:21, right here, Daniel 12, Jude 9, Revelation 12, okay? We know he is high-ranking because he's one of the chief princes in this Daniel context, and Jude 9 calls him the archangel, archeangelos, chief messenger, okay? We know he's high-ranking. We know Michael has a military function based on Revelation 12. And here's another thing. We've got the Prince of Persia right here, okay? An evil, angelic being over Persia. What nation is Michael over? If you want to cheat, it's in Daniel 10:20-21 and Daniel 12:1. What nation would you guess he's over? Just take a wild guess. Israel. Okay? We'll see it in a minute. So just like these other nations have an angelic being over them, at this time, Michael is over the nation of Israel. Okay? Somebody's called your prince. This one of you see him, he's involved in Israel type things. Okay? Now, don't let this confuse you, but I'm going to have to say this before I move on. Okay? There is a confusion between certain schools of thought who are both wrong. Okay? That Michael and Jesus Christ are on the same level, they're the same individual. They are not. Okay? Now, let me explain this. One group is heresy, because it tries to bring Jesus down to the level of an angel. That's total heresy. That's a created being. That's wrong. Another group just is wrong, but what they try to say is Michael's an example of the pre-incarnate Christ, so they take Michael up to the divine form, actually equating him with Christ. They are wrong, but it's not a heresy. It's just wrong, okay? You see the difference. There's a wrong and there's a really, really, really wrong as far as that goes. So in the end, do not equate Michael with Jesus Christ, because either you're going to be wrong or you're going to be really wrong and a heretic, okay? Either school of thought is wrong, okay? One's just really wrong. So keep that in mind. Now we go to the, matter of fact, read real quick. We see Michael in one instance, I'll say real quick. I won't go into too much detail. Read Jude 9 for us, Jacynda.
But when the archangel Michael contended with the devil, was disputing about the body of Moses, he did not presume to pronounce a blasphemous judgment, but said, "The Lord rebuke you."
Now that comes from the Assumption of Moses. That's an extra biblical book. That is neither here nor there. The whole point of that is that Satan in this text tries to lay claim to the body of Moses. What did Moses do that might give Satan the idea he had laid claim to his body? What did he do? What sin did he do? Murder. He murdered. Okay, so more than likely that's what it's talking about. And then it's a little mysterious right here, but this is actually more of a legal battle to where Michael, he either does one of the three things. We'll just name two real quick so we move on. Either he basically says, "I'm Michael, the angelic general, give me that body." He doesn't do that. Okay, he doesn't lay claim to that right. One, or two, he doesn't say, "Satan, who are you to call out anybody's sins? You're calling out this guy's sins, Satan. Let me go through the list of all the sins you did and see whose sins equal out here." Okay? He doesn't bring up Satan's sins to him, but he says, "The Lord has control of this situation." The great angelic general says, "God's got this. I ain't pulling my rank and I ain't calling out your sins. It's all about the Lord's authority and not mine." That's the point of that whole story. And if Michael, the great angelic general, does that, how much more should we when it comes to demonic warfare? Okay? That's why there's no power techniques. All right, keep all that in mind. Now we've got the prince of the kingdom of Persia. All right? We know he's a spiritual being. The exact same term that is used for Michael is used for him. One. Two, he has the capability to detain and hinder angelic beings. No human can do that unless they got demonic help. All right? Keep that in mind. His title, prince, means he is exceptionally high-ranking, and he's the high-ranking being. And based on Joshua 5, it probably implies he has a military function as well. All right? Three, we know he's evil. How do we know he's evil?
Because he's trying to hinder the will of God.
Thank you. I thought that was so easy. That's right. That's exactly right. He's trying to hinder the will of God. He's trying to fight against angelic Michael and Gabriel. You know, Mikey and Gabriel are getting fighting here with this guy, right? We know he ain't good. And here's one you might not have noticed, but there's nothing that indicates this guy loses his dominion over Persia. Later in the book of Esther, what happens to the Jews who are living under Persian rule? They almost get annihilated. Totally. So more than likely he's behind that as well. Another example of his evilness. Okay? All right. Overall, what we have with the Prince of Persia, if you got questions, ask me. But what we have with him is, we have an evil angelic being who has been assigned by Yahweh to the nation state and people of Persia. In essence, he is over the Persian Empire. More verses that talk about this kind of stuff. We'll see more in a minute. Deuteronomy 32, Psalm 82, Isaiah 24, possibly Deuteronomy 4:19. What this means is, okay, the Persian Empire is this high-ranking, evil angelic being's special area of interest. Notice I'm saying empire, not territory. There's a reason for that, okay? Number two, all right, he is over, or going to be pulling the strings behind. Now, humans carry things out, but there's a spiritual force behind them. He is the one that's going to be influencing what becomes popular in this empire in the socio-political, the religious, and the military realms. He is going to be impacting these things. Humans carry them out, but do they just have these ideas with no influence on their own? They do not. They're spiritual beings pulling the strings of the puppets. Okay? He's the puppet master of the Persian Empire. This is who this guy is. Next, he gets most of his work done through government officials. Cyrus the Great, Cambyses his son, Gubara, the generals, all these people that are related to the Persian Empire, he's going to work through them. We see this happen throughout the Old Testament. Last but not least, although some would call this a territorial spirit, I very much caution you to call this an empire spirit. Why do I say that? Because although he works within a territorial geographical realm, he is not limited to a geographical realm. How do we know that? Because Michael is over Israel, and he is not limited to the borders of Israel itself. Okay? Which means this evil angelic being could also be the one pulling the strings that is hindering activity with the rebuilding of the temple, the rebuilding of Jerusalem, and fulfilling the prophecy that needs to come about for the Son of Man to come and fulfill the plan of redemption. Okay? All of this lays play into all this. Up to this point, do you have any questions? You know this is a high-ranking evil angelic being. He's pulling the strings of the Persian Empire. This means Persian military affairs, Persian government affairs, and here's a big one, Persian religion is not something that just is void and of nothingness behind it. It all has a spiritual puppet master, with this guy being the one, being the main string puller, okay? Yeah, some have tried to say because of Persia's influence, this was Satan. I do not think so. I think we got to stop. Satan is not every demon that is anything amazing or that's high ranking is not always Satan. We got to quit doing that, okay? This is just another high ranking being itself. Now, this is what I'll do quickly, but you got to see this. This is where I think some people kind of got lost Wednesday because I just don't know where you went. Believe me, not you guys right here. I actually knew you were trying because I could see your eyes try. But some other people, they're looking down, talking, doing something else. Well, of course you're not going to get it if you're doing that, okay? This is where you got to pay attention. Are there any examples of spiritual princes or empire spirits in the Bible? Yes, in the New Testament, Ephesians 6:12, Colossians 1:16, Romans 8:38. But in the Old Testament, let's go back and just quickly look at this. Pay attention to Isaiah 24, 21, and 22. We're going to see God's punishment proclaimed against two groups who are connected. Okay? The kings of the earth and the host of heaven. Host being angelic spiritual beings who are evil at this point. How we know they're evil? They're getting judged by God. Okay? Listen to this connection in Isaiah 24, 21, and 22. Read that, Jacynda.
On that day the Lord will punish the host of heaven in heaven and the kings of the earth on the earth. They will be gathered together as prisoners in a pit. They will be shut up in a prison, and after many days they will be punished. So
we've just had put together two groups. Who are these two groups? Kings on the earth, and who from the heaven? The host, who are the evil angelic beings, are put together. That means they will all be judged for their rebellion against God. These evil angelic beings will not go free. Now, because textual variants are kind of a hard issue, we're not getting into Psalms 82, but Psalms 82 talks about the judgment as well. Here's a textual variant you got to get right. When in the world did God put these evil angelic beings over their empire nations? Well, Deuteronomy 32, 8 through 9 has a textual variant. The Masoretic text, for some reason, they put sons of Israel. That's wrong. The Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls both say sons of God. Okay? This will be huge because what it's saying is, after the Tower of Babel, Yahweh set over the rebellious nations evil angelic beings who ruled certain things such as religion, government, socio-political things that were popular, military affairs. All of these things fell under this group. Why in the world was there a textual variant there? Because the Masoretic scribes were terrified of being labeled as heretics. Everyone knows this. They very often, anything remotely sounded like polytheism or anything remotely sounded like angelic beings, they just went in and threw out to protect themselves. And quite frankly, I do not blame them. But since we are not dealing with fire getting thrown at us here for getting this wrong, we need to get it right now, okay? So let's see here. Deuteronomy 32, 8 through 9. Would you get to send and read it? You can look at it yourself if you want to. But if your translation has sons of God, I am 100% certain, and there's an article by Michael Heiser who breaks this down. Pretty much 99% of all modern scholars will let you know this as well. This isn't a hidden fact. This is the one textual variant. The English Standard Version Bible gets it right. I don't even think the Holman gets this right for some reason. I think I read an article why they chose not to, but they've even come out and said they were wrong, I think. Get me back on that. But anyway, this is going to be sons of God. And what this is going to say here is that Yahweh assigned over the nations evil angelic beings, but for himself, he calls out the Abrahamic descendants. Okay? Why would that be? Because after the flood, who does he make a covenant with? Abraham. This will be huge. You could not come to know Yahweh except through what was given to Abraham. That's how the text reads. Okay? Now read Deuteronomy 32, 8 through 9, and you want to add with that verse 17 and verse 43. Due to time, we won't go to everything, but read Deuteronomy 32, 8 through 9. And if your version has sons of Israel, change it to sons of God. It is based, I will give you all the articles and all the information on it, but the Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls being much, much older than the Masoretic text, by the way, much, much older, not even close, and they have sons of God as well. Read that for us, Jacynda.
When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he divided mankind at the Tower of Babel, he fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God, For the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob his allotted heritage.
That says he gave the nations over to their apostasy. This is going to be after the third major rebellion. The first rebellion being in the Garden of Eden, Satan. The second rebellion being with the sons of God in Genesis 6. The third rebellion being immediately after the flood with the Tower of Babel. All of these involve idolatry, rebellion, and fallen angels one way or another. And so finally a three strikes you out policy. He always says, you want to do this? Fine, you can do this. But I'm taking this group, making them mine. So he calls out the Abraham descendants, and they become a special people through that covenant. The only way to get to have knowledge of Yahweh at this point is going to have to, one way or another, be related to Abraham in this covenant. This is what this is talking about here. If you worship any other god, what you're going to worship is one of these false evil angels over the nations, which we know is going to be what? Demons. Well, you got proof for that? Yes, I do. Within the context itself. Read verse 17, Jacynda.
They sacrificed to demons that were no gods, to gods they had never known, to new gods that had come recently, whom your fathers have never dreaded.
So therefore we know what's behind all false religion? Demons. Okay? Keep all that in mind. Here's another great one. You talk about gods. Well, when we say gods, and there is no other God, what we're saying is there's nothing like Yahweh. Nothing's in that category. Okay? Nothing, because he's the creator, he is the sovereign, he's the ultimate judge, and no one can defeat him. So if we're talking about a category, there's no one like God, no one's in that category. But there are other beings called gods, which are these evil angelic beings that are running the nations. Read verse 43 for us.
Rejoice with him, O heavens, bow down to him, all gods.
Well, how can gods bow down to him if there's no such thing as other gods there? That's just talking about the evil angelic beings who are running the empires, the false religious systems, the demons that everyone else worships who don't come through Jesus Christ. That's what this is talking about, okay? Are there any questions at that point? Does that make sense to you right now? Okay? If it does, we'll keep moving on. All right, let me read you a quote here. Heiser, in his paper that pretty much made everyone go to Deuteronomy 32 Sons of God, says this. Each pagan nation was put under the administration of a being inferior to the status of Yahweh. When it comes to the host of heaven language, the gods referred to are those entities whom Yahweh allotted to the other nation. These gods, whom Israel later worshipped in apostasy, are called demons in Deuteronomy 32:17. Okay? So who is running the false religious system? Demons. Who is over the nation of Persia? High-ranking evil angelic beings who fit this category. Okay? Why was Persia a false religious nation? Because the evil angelic being behind that nation's empire was pulling the strings and making it that way. Okay? Why do other people groups worship false gods? Because there are really demons behind these false gods. Okay? Now the idols themselves are lifeless and nothing.
Amen.
They are just statues. But that doesn't mean behind the concept itself is not a real spiritual demonic being. That's what this is getting at here, okay?
The Buddhist
Do you get all
monks.
this? Yes, all of that. All of that. This is why the great deception happens. This is why there's so much believability to it. Because there's real activity that takes place through all this. This is why you shouldn't go to New Orleans unless God calls you. Because you're not going to New Orleans because everybody's just partying. You're walking into a den of demons with real witchcraft and voodoo taking place. And you will be slaughtered if you're not called to go there. Understand me, okay? I've warned several people, they don't listen, and they go there and they get attacked. And they get attacked bad. And it's because there's real spiritual war going on in these type places. All right? All right, keep all that in mind. All right, next we will move on along here. Overall, and like I said, one thing about New Orleans, if you get called to go to seminary, that's a whole different ballgame. Great seminary. But that doesn't mean you should go to the downtown areas where all the great party and witchcraft and voodoo is going on. Big difference, okay? All right, overall, the biblical doctrine of spiritual princes mean each nation has a spiritual head that work behind the various human institutions. Okay? There's a spiritual prince over Rome, a spiritual prince over Greece. We'll see him in a minute. A spiritual prince over Persia. There's even a spiritual prince over America today. Okay? Now I will say this. Michael being over Israel would probably mean he's over all Christians now. I will say that. Okay? That would be the difference there. But we are grafted under Jesus Christ. And anytime you need a guardian angel, although you might not have one all the time, you will have one when you are called to do something you need one. You will never go without what you need. God has promised you that. Okay? That's a whole different ballgame. We'll get to that next week when we get into Matthew 18 more. All right. Daniel, we'll move quickly here. Daniel 10:14.
And came to make you understand what is to happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision is for the days yet to come.
What he's going to do, he's saying, listen, the vision I give you in Daniel 11 It's going to be what's going to happen to your people. This is going to be an important situation that's going to happen to Israel, okay? Days yet to come, I'll get into later. Read verse 15 through 16. We're going to try to speed this up real quick.
When he had spoken to me according to these words, turned my face toward the ground and was mute. And behold, one in the likeness of the children of man touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spoke. I said to him who stood before me, O my Lord, by reason of the vision pains have come upon me, and I retain no strength.
He is having an anxiety attack at this point. This poor old man is still just going through emotional distraughtness. Does this look like he's having a good old time? I do not know why these people are talking about having these spiritual experiences. It was the greatest thing ever. Not according to Daniel right here. So there are these bad, hard spiritual experiences as well. And we've got to keep all that in mind, because poor Daniel is going through one of these at this point in time. Touch my lips, an angelic being. That reminds me of something that happened with other angelic beings in Isaiah 6. Now, Isaiah 6 with the seraphim was for cleansing, and this is to get strength back. So there's a little different. Notice it says, likeness of the children of man. Yeah, that's the Son of Man, but that's just talking about how this angelic being had the appearance of man. A little different there, okay? All right, verse 17 through 19.
How can my Lord's servant talk with my Lord? For now no strength remains in me, and no breath is left in me. Again, one having the appearance of a man touched me and strengthened me. And he said, O man greatly loved, fear not, peace be with you, be strong and of good courage. And as he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, Let my Lord speak, for you have strengthened me.
All right, well, we've got fear not, reassured, you're safe, you're safe. Daniel, you are safe. Okay, finally, Daniel is ready to receive the vision. That's taking a little while. You notice that? Divine first aid, 1, 2, 3 times. Reassurance, you're okay. It's all right, buddy. You'll be fine. No, I'm not. Yes, you will. No, I'm not. Yes, you will. No, I'm not. Yes, you will. Okay, we've gone through a lot of this right here, right? We're finally ready. And so now we've got what's going to happen here. And if you want to know how to read this properly, this actually reads properly if you go Daniel 10:20 through Daniel 11:1. That would cover Daniel 10:20, Daniel 10:21, and Daniel 11:1. They all go together. This often gets missed. Daniel 11:1, we're going to see here, we're going to see first off is Michael helping Gabriel. In Daniel 11:1, we're going to see where Gabriel helped Michael. So these angelic beings are going to help each other in this battle. Okay? Read that all the way through, Jacynda, and you guys can read with her. Read it all the way through from Daniel 10:20 to Daniel 11:1 is one flowing section. I'll break it down pretty quickly.
Then he said, Do you know why I've come to you? But now I will return to fight against the prince of Persia. And when I go out, behold, the prince of Greece will come. But I will tell you what is inscribed in the book of truth. There is none who contends by my side against these except Michael, your prince.
Read Daniel 11:1.
And as for me, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I stood up to confirm and strengthen him.
Okay. Do you see, first off, I strengthened him. That's talking about Gabriel helping Michael. Okay? Now first what we see here is Michael helping Gabriel against the prince of Persia. This is one powerful evil angelic being. But after the prince of Persia leaves, which will be 200 years from now, at this point in time, who's going to come on the scene? Prince of Greece. Daniel is writing this during the time of Persian rule. Is there any way he can know Greece comes next? Not without divine insight, okay? So right there you got a prophecy without even knowing it, all right? So he says right here, Prince of Greece. The Prince of Persia himself is going to last a little while longer, but then the Prince of Greece is going to come. We're going to see his activity, particularly in Daniel 11. And we're also going to see his activity, by the way, Antiochus IV. In the ancient Near Eastern intertestamental, Hitler is going to come onto the scene. Keep all that in mind, okay? What he's going to reveal here is going to come out of the book of truth. Anybody want to take a mighty gander what the book of truth is? No, but good guess. Anybody want to guess? What's it sound like? Book of truth. Not even the Bible. This is a heavenly book that has the course of history that God has planned laid out. What he's saying is, I'm going to tell you what this book says. Then he tells them from Daniel 11 what he's just quoted from the book. This is talking about God's coursed plan through history coming to pass. This book of truth right here says what's going to happen, and what's in the book of truth cannot be denied to happen. Therefore, it is truth. It is truth because it will come about. It is what God has decreed to happen before it happens that is guaranteed to come to pass, which therefore makes it truth. You get that? Okay? I'll read you some quotes. The book of truth contains the course of future history shaped by God. Yes, this book has a deterministic flavor, but the point is that God has already determined the rescue of his people. Okay? At this point in time, Daniel's going through a lot of hardship. but it's guaranteed his people will be rescued. The book of Revelation, we are guaranteed a lot of hardship. But you know what? The book of truth says we will be rescued. The second coming of Christ guarantees our vindication. The book of truth has already said it, so it will come to pass. That's what this is talking about right here, okay? And then in Daniel 11:1, this whole notion right here is for me, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I stood to confirm and strengthen him. Gabriel helping Daniel. We don't know when, but some of the options that get thrown out here are the fall of Babylon and the Medo-Persians, that Gabriel came to help Michael to usher in the Medo-Persians to help Babylon. Possibly, we know in Daniel 6, who rescued Daniel from the lion's den?
An angel.
Angels, okay? An angel. Maybe he's involved in that. It's another theory. Another theory is that Cyrus did not want to decree the release to go back to Jerusalem, but Michael and Gabriel had to combat the prince of Persia, and once they did, the decree went out and they were allowed to go back to their homelands. That's a very good theory. The answer is we do not know. But that last theory has a lot of credence to it, so keep that in mind, okay? Now, Michael, Gabriel, Michael, all this fighting going on. We're not going to start now, and you will thank me once you see how this goes, but we will start Wednesday, going into when we start back a little after that. Daniel 11:2 forward. This is where it's going to sound wordy, but be the most accurate, precise predictions of world history you might ever see in the pages of Scripture. Okay? I mean, this is just amazing how this works out. Very, very accurate. And what it's going to do, it's going to cover real quickly in verses 2 through 4, it's going to cover Persia, and it's going to be 4 major kings it's going to worry about. It's going to go from Cyrus to Xerxes. Then it's going to cut real quick to Alexander. Okay? Then it's going to cut real quick to the Diadochi, or the 4 successors. And then what it's going to do, it's going to hone in on 2 groups within these 4 successors. The Seleucid and Ptolemaic empires, which is Syria and Egypt. And it's going to talk about the 6 Syrian wars. And it's going to do so in such detail until it gets to Antiochus IV from 167 to 164 BC in the persecution of the Jews. He does. And then it's all of a sudden going to cut into the Antichrist and give us a glimpse of what's going to happen to us at the end of history. All right. Are there any questions right now? Was that so hard?
It's just a lot.
Yeah.
This is just something, correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
When Mary Magdalene seen the angels in the tomb, she looked in and seen the angel. No reaction. No reaction. And I looked in and seen angels. I probably have a reaction. Mm-hmm. But the reason I say that is was Gabriel was it in his natural state of being in warfare? It was why it perplexed Daniel so bad because he was in warfare. He was coming through warfare. He was in his, I would say, armor or whatever you would say.
Well, you know, one of the theories that I've had, and this is just one of my theories, it goes kind of along with that, and that is, if this is Gabriel, if he is doing what, like you just said, he's fighting, but at the same time, why is Daniel so freaking out? What is he doing? He's going through very emotionally distraught physical situations right now. So you add to it a warrior being, and he would be, I would imagine, appearing in his warrior form, showing up, and then Daniel going through his emotional distraughtness, doing what he's doing, and you put all that together, and you got one freaked out old guy. Okay? That's what I think you've got to combine right there. Mary Magdalene just didn't go through 21 days of complete, utter turmoil. Okay? She's going through almost 2. I mean, 3 days how you work that is a little different. But it was very, 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 very hard a few days. But there's a big difference between 2 or 3 and 21. And between a young lady and an old man. And between someone who hadn't eaten for that long period of time and someone who might have gone without food for a couple of days. There's a big psychological difference right there. So to me, you've got to take in those 2 things as well. Plus the angels you're seeing are purely messenger angels at this point, to where you got Gabriel coming through some kind of warfare aspect. You put all that together, and that could explain.
Well, because, I mean, even when Balaam was on his donkey,
that's warfare angels.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's more destroying warfare angels. Yes, now once again, we can only go through deduction and speculation, because it is not clear how this works. But when you deduce what is in the context, that is a fine conclusion you've come to. Because one way or another, there's a difference between how Mary Magdalene reacted and how Daniel reacts here.
Yeah, because the angels that Mary had seen was basically just there to comfort her, basically, you know.
Yeah, and not only that, to bring your point, even if this is the pre-incarnate Christ, how did she react to the resurrected Christ? She didn't freak out like this. So if you even whatever route you go,
Because she run to
yes,
it.
it would not. Even if you went that other route, it would be a different reaction from here to there. Something different is going on. The setting is different, one way or another. Yes.
Magdalene had also been with Jesus.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
Where
Yes. Yes. And Daniel recognized Gabriel. They had been boys, and so that's why it's so hard to know if there's one or two here, and why he freaks out so bad. You know, because even when Gabriel is there, we know it's Gabriel. He's still freaking out. He's still passing out and unconscious. And Gabriel's his boy. I mean, him and Gabriel have gone through a lot already. You know, if anybody knew Gabriel well, it was Daniel. And like I said, in heaven, I think they hang out. Okay? So if anybody knows him, it's that. But even when we know it's Gabriel, you still have Daniel passing out. And I can't get up. I'm good on the floor. I can't get up. I'm emotionally distracted. Help. I can't tell God. You know, and I really, really think we've got to take the setting of Daniel's age, Daniel's condition, and Daniel's emotional distraughtness as well. So anyway, look at it. That's just guessing.
Is it
But that's
prophetic
what I'm going
woes?
with. Well, now,
Isn't that part of being a prophet?
yeah, well, but yeah, being a prophet at that point, yeah, you can get freaked out pretty easy. That's true.
I mean,
And
they
you
all
do
have
see that a lot with the
the
Old Testament.
woes.
Them comparing. But even, you know, Zechariah, when Gabriel appeared, it was a little different than when he appeared to Mary. Maybe women just aren't scared of him as men are. Maybe women have more courage than men. Maybe that's I don't know. I'm just getting. I have no idea at that point. But these are all things we can speculate on. We can't be certain though. But I don't mind that theory at all. That's kind of what I've worked in as well. The condition of what Gabriel is doing and the condition of what Daniel's going through would all play a part. But this is the most traumatic experience you ever really see anybody go through. This detailed. And for this traumatic experience takes up almost just as much space as the vision he gets. You know, so that lets you know how important this was in the overall scheme of things. And one of the main reasons is also let you know that behind the scene is a spiritual war aspect as well. It's like he wanted to make sure we knew that. And for some reason today, we talk about it, but we just don't know that. And it's beyond me, okay? Now, that being said, this does not lead to an idea known as spiritual mapping or chasing territorial spirits that some groups do. Do not do that. Because Daniel never engages these spirits. He never finds their name. He doesn't even pray against them. He just prays to the Lord. He's just informed this information, okay? So I would caution anybody who comes in and goes, we got to do spiritual mapping. We got to do this, that. We got to find these demons. We got to name these. You don't. That's going to power techniques. And this is where you're feeding in to what's a form of spiritual necromancy, just contacting the realm of spirits. You're committing the sin of necromancy. Anybody who calls himself a Christian ghost hunter is an oxymoron. And anybody who wants to come to do spiritual mapping runs the danger of feeding these demons and giving them more power to begin with. That doesn't mean we aren't to pray to the Lord and use the strength He gives us to combat demonic activity. But at the same time, there's a right way and a wrong way. And there are certain groups who use this passage to teach the wrong way. Okay, so I will warn you right now on that. Be cautious of anybody who comes in and goes, we need to do spiritual mapping through territorial spirits, and uses this as their example. Because this is not a good example for territorial spirits. These are empire spirits. And like I said, we know that because Michael was over Israel, and he wasn't limited to a territory. Okay? Keep all that in mind. All right, good questions. Anything else? Anybody else got anything? Nobody else. You got all this read? You get it all, buddy? Good job. Yeah, good job, man.
Hang it in there.
Good. Like I said, I know it can be a lot, but I didn't see what was so hard about it. And the people that tried, I felt got it. Like I felt Dennis and Arnold they got it all. I didn't have a problem with it at all. And I felt ladies back here were paying attention. But I thought other people were not paying attention. And everyone was complaining to me. It didn't make any sense. And like I said, this kind of stuff will not make sense to you unless you try. Okay? That's what you've got to understand that. And that is the most broken down I can do with this and still make it as complex as it is. Okay? Are there any other questions at this point? I will quiz you on this next week. No, just kidding. Just kidding. All right.